Welcome to Times Talks at the Times Center. We are uber excited to have such an informative, innovative filmmaker with us tonight. To paraphrase our moderator's profile of him in the New York Times Magazine, he is walking, talking proof that you can violate the rules and still flourish in Hollywood. He's received the top awards of his profession, including the Oscar, the New York Times Film Critics Award, the Independent Spirit Award, and the Palme d'Or. He loves making movies, and it shows. His latest film, Inglourious Basterds, is his highly anticipated World War II movie, starring Brad Pitt. We're counting the days till it opens next week, and as the tagline says, or one of the taglines, you haven't seen war till you've seen Inglourious Basterds. You'll meet him in just a minute, but first, I'm delighted to introduce our interviewer. As the editor-at-large of the New York Times Magazine, she is known for identifying and defining the most important people and trends in the world of entertainment and culture. She wrote about tonight's guests before anyone else had written about how important his work is to the world of film. What truly sets her apart is that her work goes beyond the glamour and the glitz to show us something new and important about the world we live in. Please join me in welcoming New York Times Magazine editor-at-large Lynn Hirschberg and our very special guest, Quentin Tarantino.
That's what I call a New York welcome. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming. It's a Friday night in August, so it's great that you all came, and you're really in for a fantastic treat because Quentin's one of the great human beings on the planet. So I always feel very lucky to have met him when he had done only Reservoir Dogs. And I was actually on the set of Pulp Fiction, which I always consider to be one of the luckiest things in my life. So you guys are lucky that you get to be here because Quentin's here. So.
What she's not telling you is she was doing a piece for Vanity Fair, and she showed up on the set. I didn't realize it was an audition. If she thinks I'm interesting enough, she will write the piece. I thought she was going to write the piece. I didn't realize I was on audition.
Well, he was so fantastic that it was almost like I couldn't wait to write the piece. But it was also a cool day because it was in the house in Pulp Fiction, which I'm sure you've all seen, and John Travolta was sort of lurking around with his ponytail, and it was like, who knew?
I was dressed like Jimmy the whole day, wasn't I?
You were dressed like Jimmy.
Yeah,
you were in your robe.
Bathrobe.
Yeah, you were in a bathrobe the whole day that you were kind of living in. It was great. It was like you were living the whole movie. So I guess that begs the question: what did you wear on the set of Inglourious Basterds? Were you wearing an army uniform the entire time?
I was, my weight fluctuates when I make a movie, so I'm wearing whatever I can fit into. All right, and then I don't eat for a week, and then I can fit into my shirts again for a little bit. I had a big old army coat that I could wear at different times.
So you made this movie in Berlin.
Yeah.
And it's a World War II movie. And I guess I'm beginning sort of in the middle, but you just showed the movie in Berlin.
Yeah.
And I was really curious what the reaction was to the film there, where there's obviously so much history and...
Well, one of the things, I almost feel like I'm becoming an ambassador for Germany because there is this aspect that people will ask me, because of movies about these Jewish American soldiers doing an Apache resistance against the Nazis. And people will, and we end up taking on the Third Reich in a big way. Anyway, the thing is, people would read the script and they go,
They end up taking on the Third Reich in a huge way.
Yeah.
I mean, to say in a big way is kind of like a minor way of putting it. The whole movie is kind of like Quentin's revenge on the Third Reich in some very creative and interesting ways, which we'll see clips of in a minute. But
and one of the things is people would say, "Oh, I wonder how the Germans are going to take this.
Yeah.
I'd like to be a fly in the wall." All right. And the thing I have to remind them, I go, with the possible exception of Jews, if there's anybody that's had bringing down the Third Reich and killing Hitler fantasies, it's the last few generations of Germans, all right? They didn't do anything, all right? And they've been living under this shadow. I mean, just even the idea that, some of the German actors that I cast, probably not in fact, I know it's not the first time they've ever donned a Nazi uniform before. If you're a German male actor, that's just part of life. All right, you're gonna have to wear a Nazi uniform at one time or another. You know, I'm like, that's a hell of a thing.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
You know, I mean, you know, just anyway. So
I mean, wasn't it even sort of odd to even see, like, maybe in a costume truck or something, like lines of?
Well, you know, I was making. Oddly enough, it wasn't weird. It was more weird for the Germans, all right, you know, because you Americans and whatever, we know we're making a movie and the costumes and the stuff, and I mean, you know, like, you know, people don't really do it in America, but I mean, you could almost, it'd be bad taste, but you could almost wear a Nazi uniform for Halloween, almost, all right, not quite, but almost, all right.
I'll just
But
go with you on that.
well,
one.
I said almost. I said almost. Almost is not. You could. All right. It's
Okay.
almost. All right. But I mean, they have in Germany. I mean, like a zero tolerance for anything.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, well, one thing you can do in America, if you want it, if you want to wear a swastika, you can. All right. They throw your ass in jail too. Sweet, you wear a swastika. Any kind of swastika, it just can't be. It just can't be. So there was this aspect of, like, you know, especially like for the German extras who are not necessarily, you know, working at movie sets all the time, that it's like, it's just really was disturbing to see gigantic swastika banners, you know, go from floor to ceiling and all that kind of pageantry and everything. But anyway, the thing about the movie, when we had the big premiere, was...
And that's last week.
Yeah, it was just last week in Berlin. It was incredible. I mean, I can't ever imagine this ever happening again anywhere, because it was just a special thing. And one of the things is a friend of mine who was at the screening, who's been living in Germany for the last 5 years, said, God, you know, I got to say, there was some things against the Germans at the beginning that I was, you know, knowing the audience was full of Germans, I was cringing. And then some friends of mine explained the night, and they were just saying, no, but you have to understand something. That's nothing new for Germans. They're used to cringing in movies, all right? Especially when they deal with World War II, all right? That's just a common state of being if you're a German, all right? You just get over it, all right? They're used to it. And, you know, they're used to seeing through the eyes of guilt and stuff. And, but what happens in the movie's very funny. And the thing is, it gets funnier and funnier as it goes on. And there's this kind of almost like, you know, and the story gets, you know, if I dare to say so, more thrilling as it goes on. And so there's this moment about kind of halfway through where a lot of comedy's going on, and they're laughing, and it's just kind of building and building, and the suspense is building. And, you know, and they've got these magnificent German actors in the movie, so they're also so proud that their actors are just killing it. I mean, they're just fucking killing it, all right? And at some point, it was like the German audience like, wait a minute, we're watching a World War II movie and we're allowed to laugh. We're actually allowed to enjoy this movie, and that's maybe never happened. And so it was cathartic when the movie was over. And it, you know, and it ended exactly the way they wanted it to end, actually.
Well, let's backtrack a bit, because this project was something that you've been working on for, I'm guessing, a decade? How long?
Yeah, but I started writing it. I came up with the idea and started writing it around after Jackie Brown, so that'd be 98.
Wow. So, and when you started writing it, did you conceive it in this form, or how did you start the process?
Well, it was, the reason it took me so long is back then, I came up with the basic idea, especially of the two parallel stories, the Bastards and Shoshana's story and her thing. She's a young Jewish French girl who saw her whole family massacred by the Nazis, and she's been hiding out in Paris for the last 4 years, and surviving, basically.
But I remember back then you reading to me the scene that begins the movie, essentially.
Yeah.
And so you had that done 10 years ago.
Yes, I did, yeah. The thing is, I came up with all the characters, most of the characters, and I wrote, the movie's broken up into chapters, and so I wrote so there's 5 chapters. I wrote the first 2 chapters back then, which are kind of the Sergio Leone introduction. Everyone has a 20-minute introduction in this movie. All right, but the thing was, I had a different storyline in mind, and I was following a different scenario, and it was just too big. it was just too all-encompassing. And at a certain point, I realized that it wouldn't be a movie. I mean, it could be a mini-series, but it wouldn't be a movie. And and especially with my Sergio Leone-itis, which was really going crazy at that time, I could not introduce a character without giving them 20 minutes, for their introduction. And then I had, there was no mission, just a bunch of guys. I was scared to write the story because I was already at 300 pages or whatever.
And you write longhand.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was like a thing where, there was rumors that I was having writer's block. I had the opposite of writer's block. I could not stop writing. And also the fact that it was like, that at that time, it would have been my first original after Pulp Fiction. So I was understandably precious about it. And so anyway, I just, I couldn't tame this unwieldy epic. So I go to do this little exploitation film that will be the cure to my epic-itis, a little thing called Kill Bill that turned into Kill Bill Volumes 1 and Volume 2, all right? Thank you. Just kind of let you know where I was coming from at that time. So when I came back to it in
And that was supposed to be like a little,
yeah, that was
palate cleanser.
That was exactly. it cleansed my palate, that's for sure. All right. And so anyway, when I came back to the piece in 2008, in fact, I even thought at one time about maybe not doing it at all, thinking about like maybe that time has passed and there was a time and that time's gone, but I knew I had to finish writing it because it was just inside me and I had to get it out. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to come up with anything while that was still in there. Even if it ended up just being something I wrote and throw in a drawer and never did, I had to get it out. Like I have to climb this mountain before I can see the other mountains.
Right.
Now that's not what happened. I ended up really wanting to do it once I got into it. But I considered it for a second. And so the thing was, when I went back to it, I realized this story just wasn't going to work. So I came up with a new scenario. And the new story that the film follows is the story of Frederick Zoller, who's basically the German Audie Murphy. He's a huge German war hero who's done this like really incredible thing. And so Goebbels has made a movie about him and had him play himself in the movie. And this movie is going to be a big, not a last-ditch effort, but a huge effort on the part of the Third Reich because they know at this point in time that there's not really winning any more battles on the battlefield anymore, but they can do this big movie that will be the equivalent of winning a battle,
right.
For the German people on screen and with their hero starring in it. And then the fact that like there's going to be this huge premiere with all the Nazi hoi polloi there at this Paris premiere, and then that would be the mission, blow up the premiere. So that's how all that happened.
And when did you come up with the character of Landa, which you haven't seen the movie, but the character of Landa he's a Nazi hunter.
He's a Jew hunter.
He's a Jew hunter.
The opposite of a Nazi hunter,
but
actually.
I know, but I was
Simon Wiesenthal's a Nazi hunter.
I was trying to make this other point, and so my brain clouded. But that point I was trying to make, actually, which I noticed, which I was thinking about today when I was thinking about I was going to talk to you, the one thing I've never talked to you about, which I feel like is so profound, which you guys will all scoff now, is that your heroes are always anti-heroes. They're almost always villains.
Yeah.
I mean, your heroes are always, so it's not dark exactly because they're kind of weirdly light villains. I mean, in terms of their happiness with villainy. But they're never, again and again and again, you wouldn't call them classic heroes. I mean, in the sense of the heroic leading man, like Frederick Zoller even.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that you think about when you're writing?
I actually really try to have morality not even be an issue at all right, when it comes to my characters.
No, but it's so interesting. I mean,
I don't want that to have any play whatsoever. That would be me commenting on them.
Right.
That is me sticking my big nose into their lives and then their philosophies. I let them be who they are. And my just feeling is, I just want the same rights that a novelist has. I mean, like, we lived through the 80s where like fucking every Hollywood movie, everyone had to be likable and everybody had to be understandable,
right.
And the test scores were like, oh, well, we didn't like him, so we got to change every goddamn thing, and I didn't make movies at that time, but I was watching them and I said, I'm not going to make that crap. And And I just want the same freedom that a novelist has. I mean, you can make a novel, you can write a novel about a bastard, but it can be totally interesting.
Completely, and that's what's so. I mean, if you think about Michael, I mean, from the very beginning in Reservoir Dogs.
That's been your philosophy forever,
I
all
know,
right?
my philosophy forever has been it doesn't matter what you're like as long as you're interesting.
Yeah.
So my feeling is, interest is everything. I mean, I'm actually paraphrasing John Huston, who, when he was on when he was very old, was talking to somebody, and they said, what was the thing of your life that was most important? And was it women? Was it a great meal? Was it making the movies? And he said, interest. Interest was the thing that, and to me, that's what's so fascinating about all your characters is that they're always, always, always interesting. And chief among them is Landa, who in a million years as a Jew hunter, I would never have thought I would find compelling.
Well, it's complicated.
Yeah,
right?
it's very complicated.
Right? But one of the things, though, is, I mean, part of my thing with look, I do love the fact that on one hand, he appears to be evil. I can't judge my characters.
Right.
I like them all.
Right.
But he appears to be evil. At the same time, I love the fact that he's disturbingly charismatic. He's disturbingly compelling.
Yes.
There is this aspect that you want him to figure out the bastard's plan, not because you want the bastard's plan to be foiled. You just want to see what he would do.
Right, exactly.
And you kind of don't want him to disappoint you either. You want him to be as brilliant as you think he is. And, but I think the big thing about it is he's a detective. And he's just a great detective. He's just a great detective. And you just, especially somebody like you can't help but admire somebody who's great at their job.
Right.
All right. Be a Jew hunter or not. All right. He's the best.
And he's really interesting.
And and there is this aspect of there's the movie has a lot of different interrogations that happen in the film, and he conducts a bunch of them, and it was just fun writing him because. It's all a complete act of theater. Every single solitary thing he does, it really is just to get inside their brains and monkey with them. I'll just give you an example. There's the French farmer in the film, in that opening scene. He takes out a pipe and smokes it. And at some point in the interrogation, Landa asks, may I smoke my pipe as well? And he says, yes, by all means. And then he comes out with this calabash, all right, which is the Sherlock Holmes pipe, all right? It always gets a big laugh right at that moment. He's got this big-ass calabash. And in the script, I actually had him use that calabash twice more, just in little bits. It wasn't important stuff. You saw him with it, like he's thinking or something. And the thing was, so I'm getting together. So I'm working with Christoph, and we just had a really wonderful. Christoph Waltz, who plays Landa.
Yes.
We had a really wonderful relationship as far as the way we had decided to attack the character, because basically, he knew I knew this guy, and I knew his whole backstory and everything, and. But the thing about it is, rather than dictate to Christoph, it was more like, I would almost be more like Landa. I would ask him questions about Landa and propose different ideas and ask him his opinion on them. Like, well, what do you think? Is this you or is this not you? Like, for instance, one of the things that, so we were having dinner and talking about the different ways Landa is. And I go, now I know in the script that, you take out the pipe and it actually has that it's your pipe. It's definitely your pipe in the script. But let me ask you a question. Does Landa even smoke a pipe? I mean, maybe that's just a prop, because you see, Landa's going to know everything about this French farmer that he possibly can before he shows up. So he's going to know the guy smokes a pipe. So maybe he doesn't smoke a pipe. Maybe that's just a prop, and he just brings it out at a certain point, and he picks the Sherlock Holmes pipe to say, I fucking know what you're talking about, man. I got you. I got you. And mine is bigger than yours. All right, I'm figuring you out. Just know I'm on you. And so what do you think? He goes, oh, most definitely. Landa does not smoke a pipe. It is just an interrogation technique.
And then you could work with it from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you did an interesting thing when you cast this movie. You felt strongly about people being of the nationality of whatever they were playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Why was that so important to you?
Well, it just happens.
Like if you're English, he wanted to cast an English person, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it was just so.
And I interviewed Michael Fassbender, who plays Archie Hickox, the
Brit.
The Brit in the movie is fantastic. and he really wanted to play Landa.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he told me that he came to the audition not preparing anything, and you were like, you have just been in Wuthering Heights. You can't possibly be German.
Yeah,
You're
anybody who can
not
play
playing-
Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights is not German enough to be my Landa.
He was very disappointed. So you must have had other people who were like, well, I'm American, but I can do German.
Yeah, no, I wasn't playing that game at all. All right, you know, the Germans had to be German. Not only that they had to be German, they couldn't be Swiss, they couldn't be Dutch, they couldn't be Danish. Sorry, Max von Sydow, see you later, Rutger Hauer, you know. Because, you know.
I would like to be there for See You Later, Rutger Hauer.
You know.
Too bad, Rutger. This was your moment, but no.
Yeah, no. If there was a Dutch guy, you got the part. But there wasn't, you know. But the thing is, it's just, you know, it's just so easy to fudge. I mean, half the time you see these movies, you know, it's like the Dutch are playing Germans, and because well, they all look alike, right? You know, no, they don't. And not only that, it's like the whole movie is, you know. A case can be made that one of the things that the movie is about is language. And it has to bear scrutiny in these countries, all right? And so, yes, there's a lot of Dutch that can speak German. That doesn't mean they speak it like a German.
Right.
And like I mean, people die in this movie because they don't speak German the correct way, and they're trying to.
Right.
I mean, there is a big aspect in this film that I think gets lost in a lot of World War II movies that I think is very fascinating. World War II was the last time a whole bunch of white people fought a whole other bunch of white people. All right, you know, we've tried to avoid that ever since. All right, and and the thing is,
It's hard to find as good an enemy as the
yeah,
Nazis.
exactly. You know, and but one of the realities of that is, if you could pull it off, if you could speak a different language and you could pull off like a regular, then you know, you could infiltrate different armies. The Germans could infiltrate the Polish
Right.
resistance. They can
Right.
introduce the Czech resistance. You know, Americans could infiltrate the Germans, and we've seen that all the time in movies. But we always see it in this bullshit way where English is supposedly German.
Right.
All right. I mean, there was that movie Shining Through with Melanie Griffith, where
yes.
apparently
Michael
Melanie
Douglas.
Griffith, you know, speaks German like a milkmaid, all right? And then, you know, but she just sounds like Melanie Griffith, all right? And then, like, a real German actor walks in, and you're like, well, what the fuck, where's he fucking from, all right? And, you know, and then you can just go on and on with these analogies. I mean, like, but like one that I actually really used as a basis for the movie, I think maybe the best scene in the movie is the scene that takes place in the tavern.
It's
in
amazing
the
scene.
middle of the film.
It's like the set piece of the center of the film.
Yeah, it's almost like Reservoir Dogs reduced to like 25 minutes in German.
It's really fantastic.
But the thing is, though, part of the thing about that scene is some of the bastards are trying to infiltrate, are dressed up as Germans and they're trying to infiltrate. Now, we've seen that scene a zillion times before. But the thing is, like, okay, like for instance, okay, and Where Eagles Dare. Okay, there's a big scene. I like Eagles. It's a lot of fun. But there's a section where apparently Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood, of all fucking people, Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood, all right, speak German so flawlessly that all they have to do is put on like 2 officer uniforms and they can just mix it up with all the hoi polloi of German generals that you can think of. Now, because German is English, all right, they're able to pull it off. Well, one, I don't buy it, all right, but forget that. We'll say I do. To me, they're missing the most exciting, suspenseful part of the movie. Because if it was German and they had to pull it off, I mean, I would imagine in real life, that would be far more suspenseful than
Right.
gallivanting
Right.
around on ski lifts. I mean, that would be fucking horribly exciting and horribly suspenseful and murderous. All right, the tension. And so to me, but that's something that's been lost in all these World War II movies by not going that way. So I went that way.
Is there any one that has actually gone that way? I can't think of one.
Well,
that
not exactly in my way. I mean, look, there's been other movies where the Germans speak German. I mean,
They
you know,
almost always have
the Longest Day, for instance, you
Yeah.
know, is like, you know, one of the better examples. And that's the best part of that movie is the Bernard Wicki German part of The Longest Day. It's the best part.
But they so often have English accents.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. You would think the Third Reich started at the Old Vic. All right, you know, Christopher Plummer and Peter O'Toole. All right, you know, gallivanting around.
I mean, it's so often the case that they're British.
But my feeling though about this is, some people have said, "Oh, do you think that's a risky commercial move?" I actually think it might be unconventional wisdom, but I think it'll prove to be the wisdom, because I actually think, especially if you're talking about young people going and see the movie, okay, when they all speak English and they fudge the accents or fudge the dialogue or fudge the language and everything like that, I think those are the things that make those movies look old-fashioned. They feel like they were made in 1966, all right? They just feel quaint. You don't quite buy them. It's a contrivance that we put up with for a long time, and we're over it.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of watching an Iraqi war movie where the Iraqis would be speaking English to each other would be unfathomable, all right? Well, this is unfathomable as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Now, did you, I know in general you've seen a lot of war movies. Did you really see a lot of war movies when you were writing, or did you try to stay away from them?
What I found myself watching was not necessarily the genre I set out to do, all right, because
But wouldn't you say you set out to do like a few genres at once?
well, it becomes that way.
Yeah,
It becomes
yeah,
that way. But usually my starting off point is something very basic, and this is there's subgenre, like Westerns, there's subgenres inside of war films. And, the subgenre I was jumping off is the bunch of guys on a mission war movie.
Right.
And now that's the idea, is to start with there, and then it's going to expand, and I don't know where it's going to go, but that's the hope it's going to go somewhere else. But it'll hopefully still deliver some of the pleasures of that genre. I just sprayed on that, I'm sorry. But the thing is, what I found myself watching when I was actually doing the writing in my 2008, was a lot of stuff that I actually hadn't watched before. I was watching a lot of the movies actually made during the war, what you would call the Hollywood propaganda movies. And most of them made by foreign directors who were now exiled into Hollywood. They had to make movies in the studios because they couldn't live in their country because the Nazis were occupying them. All right, whether it be Jean Renoir with This Land Is Mine, Fritz Lang with Manhunt or Hangmen Also Die, Jules Dassin with Nazi Agent and Reunion in France. I discovered a director that I fell in love with. He's this Russian director who made movies in France. He only did 3 movies in America, but they were terrific, and 2 of them were these kind of movies. His name is Leonid Mogi, and he did a movie.
Spell that?
M-O-G-Y.
Okay.
And I thought it was Mogwai, and then Pierre Ricci, no, it's just Mogi. But he did a movie, Action in Arabia, and another film, Paris After Dark, which is about the Paris Resistance. And you can just keep going on with all these other directors. And what's interesting about them, and not to mention Ernst Lubitsch with To Be or Not to Be. Now, the thing is about it that's interesting is...
That's an interesting reference, actually.
Yeah. Well, they ended up even being influential on this movie to one degree or another. But the thing about it that I thought was very fascinating is, especially since in the last 30 years, now I'm not saying this as a criticism, it's just what it is. For the last 30 years, all the World War II movies have they've been very somber affairs, all right? They've really focused on the victims of war and the Holocaust and anti-war statements. I don't mean as opposed to pro-war statements, but I mean it's just heavy going.
Yes.
All right, but there's been some good movies that come out of there, but that has been the tale that's been told.
The Holocaust.
Yes, exactly. And now the thing is, I'm going to get back in 2 seconds to my point. But the thing is, but back in the 60s and 70s with movies like The Devil's Brigade and The Great Escape and The Dirty Dozen, there was no crime. There was nothing wrong with telling a thrilling adventure story. There was no worries about that. Fine. You can go and see The Great Escape and say, I had a great time watching that movie and not feel bad about it.
Right.
So it was very interesting to look at the movies actually made during the war, all right? Because what I found fascinating was these are actually directors that had firsthand not only experience with the war itself, because they were now living in America. I mean, the idea that Jean Renoir couldn't be in France is, again, unfathomable almost.
Yeah.
But a lot of them actually had personal experiences, encounters with Nazis, and you had to assume that they're worried about people back at home.
Or knew people in the resistance.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so the thing about it was, yet you watch these movies, and it's shocking how entertaining they are.
Huh.
They usually build to some big moment where a character gives a big speech against the Nazis, or because that's like the one thing you would not be able to do in a Nazi-occupied country, and it usually means their death. But that's the big crescendo moment. But before it gets there, the stories are thrilling, the intrigue, the political intrigue is very exciting, and they're actually oftentimes they're quite funny. Not so much that they go for comedy, with the exception of The Great Dictator or To Be or Not to Be, but they actually the dialogue is so damn witty.
Right.
All right, it's just that 40s great Hollywood dialogue, that they had. Dudley Nichols writing her stuff. And like George Sanders is in almost every fucking one of them. So naturally the dialogue is great. Every time he opens his mouth, it's just fantastic. And so, not that I needed permission, but just to know that during the war, where these people who had such a personal relationship with the war at the time had no fear about making entertaining movies about the subject. It didn't give me license, because I already had license, but it just made me feel even more empowered, you might say.
Did you base the Bastards on any particular characters, or did you have just in your mind a group of Jews?
They're a complete, utter creation of
I
from
love
myself.
The Bastards, but
Yeah. However, one thing that I actually found, and I found it out from John Milius when he's a war expert and one of Hollywood's great raconteurs, and.
Is he a war expert about all wars or just war?
Actually, yeah, he's about all wars. I mean, he'll tell you about the Napoleonic War.
Wow.
He'll tell you about Vikings. He knows
He knows
it all. He knows it all. And so I came up with this idea of the Bastards and kind of how they would be and how they would do, and I brought it up to him, and he goes, "Well, that didn't happen that I know of, but what you're talking about, this kind of Jews threatening the Nazis when captured, that happened a lot." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, basically, a Nazi would get captured during wartime, whether it's Sicily or France or wherever. A Nazi would be captured, and they'd interrogate him, and they'd just say, 'Look, here's the deal. I'm a nice guy, but you got to tell us what we want to know, because if you don't, we're going to give you to our Jew. And if we give you to our, it's just going to be bad. All right, you want to talk to me. You don't want to talk to Irving. All right, I promise you. He's just not down with this whole master race thing. He's got something really to prove, and so I would tell me, or else we're going to give you to Irving." And I thought, oh, well, that's really interesting.
And how often do you think they talked to? Did they wait to see Irving, or did they give it up?
Well, it's I would imagine a lot of them told what's going on, actually. But one of the things I tried to do in the film, and like you saw a bit of it in the interrogation scene with the German sergeant that Aldo has, one of the things that I tried to do in this was, ultimately, at the end of the day, I do feel that everybody is everybody, all right? And it's just too easy to put black hats on anybody. And so the thing is, as much fun as there is to be had in the movie of, let's watch the Jews kick the shit out of the Nazis, well, that's there to be had. But I tried to make it complicated.
Yeah.
And like, for instance, in that German sergeant situation, under any criteria of bravery in the face of the enemy, that man passes the test.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean you still can't have fun watching the scene, but it's complicated fun now.
Right.
He's a brave soldier. There's no two, three, four ways about it.
Yeah, right. It's true. Now, how did you find him? How did you find that actor? Was he?
That actor, Richard Samuels. He's one of the German actors that I had seen in a few things before. That guy's awesome, man. I mean, he has a face right out of a Sergio Leone movie. I mean, I'm telling you, if Sergio Leone was making movies, that guy would be in them.
Yeah.
And that was actually a situation where I don't know if the character actually had that much dignity on the page, but I wanted that guy.
Right.
And talking to him, and frankly, he wanted to work with me, but he wasn't down. I think I've put on my last Nazi uniform. I'm going to talk to you about it.
Huh.
But I'm not really happy about putting on a Nazi uniform. And in talking him into it, I came up with the idea of actually making him stronger and making him more of a force as opposed to a cringing coward. If he was a cringing coward, when Donnie the Bear Jew comes out there with a bat, you would enjoy it more. But that wasn't really what I was about. So I liked making it much more complicated in that issue. But part of that was actually just to get him to play the role.
Really? Because he said otherwise,
Yeah, it was, he wanted to work with me, but he just wasn't on the page as far as he was concerned, and he doesn't want to just put on a Nazi uniform there has to be a reason.
And Landa, who also puts on a Nazi uniform, was that an issue for him at all?
No, not at all. No, Landa's on the page. Right, Landa was definitely on the page.
No, but I just wonder if there's any trepidation at all about, playing a Nazi, essentially, even though he's a brilliant character.
Look, some German actors definitely have that. That was not a problem with Landa. Pretty much every actor in Germany who could play Landa wanted to play Landa.
And did you just see all these actors that you hadn't? How did you see a lot of German films?
Actually, one of the things that ended up happening was I've never seen more movies by a single country that are like more or less like current movies made in the last few years than I did German movies this last year, because these actors would come in and I wouldn't know what they've done, and sometimes I would watch it to get a sense of them. Bring this guy in, or I'd watch a movie and maybe they want me to see this guy, but I see 9 other people, all right, in it that I think are interesting.
Right.
Or I would see somebody and I liked them, and then I would get a movie that they'd done so I could watch their work and see it in some sort of a dramatic arc.
Right.
And so that was actually quite fascinating. I like to watch movies. I like any excuse to go further and deeper into cinema. So it was wonderful for me.
And did you learn anything about German cinema, which I don't know that much about? Modern, you know very few things that come here.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. That's what we're usually stuck with.
Lives of Others and like 2 other movies.
Yeah, there's The Counterfeiters.
Yeah, The Counterfeiters.
Actually, Germany's on a roll. They've won 2 Oscars in a row, for best films.
And Downfall was.
Yeah. And one of the things is, what I realized very, very quickly, all right, was the fact that the acting level in Germany is off the chart.
Wow.
They can take on any other, I guess for lack of a better word, smallish country other than Hollywood industry. All right, they can take on almost any other country that's like renowned for their actors, whether it be England, whether it be Australia. They can just take them on. All right, it's just pound for pound, they're just awesome. Especially the German the males, they're magnificent, and the filmmaking itself, especially like the cinematography and all this stuff.
Right.
It really looks good. They have a really good thing, and I'm not painting this with a wide brush. This is, I don't mean this 100%, but there are terrific German directors. Tom Tickler is fantastic. All right, Faith Anakin is terrific, and of course there's the older directors. But it seems to me what the industry needs more than anything is it needs more auteurs.
Interesting.
The films are entertaining, but they're also kind of similar to TV movies at the same time. They look good, but it is the thing that I felt that a lot of them. I'd watch the movie, and then if I stopped it in the middle, even though I enjoyed it, I might never start it again. It wasn't compelling enough to take it all the way to the end, even though I liked it.
Well, I wanted to ask you this. I've wanted to ask you this for years, ever since we had an argument over Top Gun. Do you find... I didn't like Top Gun.
I'm not quite as passionate about it anymore.
He's given up his passion for it, but he was throwing napkins at my head because I was being negative about it. But anyway, do you try to find things that you like about every movie? Do you find yourself trying to root for a movie when you watch it? Is that your basic sort of orientation?
If I'm sitting down to watch a movie, I want to like it, all right?
I know, but do you try to find things? You're so wonderfully, I love this about you. You're so wonderfully optimistic about,
Well, I try to I don't like people who are catty and just get snotty just on account of a cuz, so.
No, I understand that. But do you also sort of sit there and kind of say...
if I have to pull teeth, then, it's not as enjoyable an experience. But, I don't want to bend over backwards.
But I don't feel like you have to. I think you actually see I mean, have you always sort of just seen the good in movies?
Well, look, there's a whole, like I like exploitation cinema and stuff, Filipino exploitation cinema, Italian exploitation cinema, which means that I'm forgiving a tremendous amount, all right? But I don't mind that. I mean, that's actually it's part of its charm. Once you know it,
yeah.
And once you know that film industry's way of doing it, it becomes part of its charm. I didn't realize I was giving you guys my back so often. I'm sorry. But it was, that becomes also part of its charm, and and then the things that they do that are different than the Hollywood movie that stand out. Well, that makes them even all the better. I mean, that was the thing about growing up and seeing every exploitation movie that opened at the theaters. Part of the fun of that was basically, you have to drink a lot of milk before you can appreciate cream.
Yes.
And you have to drink a lot of milk that's gone bad, all right, before you can even appreciate milk. And the thing was, you just saw like tons of crappy movies every week, but then you'd see like a good one. And it seemed great, all right? It seemed, wow, you go see Joe Dante's Piranha, his Jaws ripoff, and like, that was wonderful, all right? And actually that movie is wonderful.
That's a really good movie.
Yeah, but your expectations are so fucking low, all right? That when it actually ends up being witty and good, all right, you're like, wow.
I have another question vis-a-vis Inglourious Basterds, which is about Brad Pitt, which is that in general, you cast movie stars, but you don't cast often like the kind of mega movie stars that are Brad Pitt-like movie stars.
Well, people say that, but I remember when I got Bruce Willis in Pulp Fiction, that was a huge deal.
I was going to say Bruce Willis, but that was okay, and he was great.
Yeah.
He was amazing. But I don't care. We can talk about it with Bruce Willis too. The question is, how does that change, or does it change, how you construct the scene, how you imagine the...
maybe the schedule is a little bit more friendly to Brad than it was to Robert Forster, all right, but... but short of that, all right, not much at all. I mean, look, if 3 years ago we were on this stage and you were asking me, whoa, would you ever like to work with Brad Pitt? I would say, well, hell yeah, I'd love to work with Brad Pitt, but it doesn't work like that. Right. It really is about the character.
Right.
I mean, the thing is, my biggest number one obligation is I'm a writer, and I come up with characters, and they are my life's blood. That's what I do. I don't have children. I come up with characters. They
are your children.
And they are my children. And the people who I cast in it, it has to be perfect. It has to be who they are, or else, then it becomes a struggle to just, articulate text. All right, and I especially if I've done it on the page, I know it'll be a compromise. So that's why I just can't cast a talented star to play the role, because he just won't be the person.
But you must have people banging down your door saying, I want to be that
yeah, but it's
guy.
it's all abstract though.
Yeah.
It's all abstract. I'd like to work with you. I'd like to work with you too. All right, But the thing about it is, I mean, I'm very proud of the casting in my movies.
Oh, yeah.
So if we are going to work together, we want it to be special. And well, the only way it's going to be special is if there is a real symbiotic union between actor and character. And in the case of this, it was perfect. I mean, he's as perfect for his role, Brad is as perfect for his role, Aldo, as Christoph is for Landa. I mean, they're just a symbiotic relationship between them.
Did you find that another thing that's always intrigued me about you, and this goes back a bit to Kill Bill, this goes to Kill Bill, is Kill Bill is very unique in that the movie is almost all constructed of women fighting with women.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've read a bazillion interviews with you, and I've actually no one's ever asked you about that. Was that difficult to stage, different to stage? Was it?
It got better, all right?
I mean, because it's a complicated equation. You're not used to seeing that, and yet you have to treat it as if it's another action scene, and they're genius scenes. I mean, really brilliant. I went back and watched it again, And you do, and what's so great about them in a way is it's like beyond female, because you don't, you know, she's kick-ass beyond kick-ass, but you don't think of it as.
Oh, you know, Kill Bill is the first movie I've done as a director that doesn't take place in my normal universe. It really exists in a complete movie
You live
universe.
in World War II?
Well, no. I mean, but actually, the universe that Inglourious Basterds takes place in is the same one as True Romance, and you know, and
it's more. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit.
No. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Okay.
I'm saying it takes place in the same world. All right, you know.
Yeah.
But you know
We'll be together, all together.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, though, but Kill Bill takes place in a world that doesn't exist. It's a movie universe, and it's a complete world of my own making. And one of the things I like about that world is it's not a thing that the women could be magnificent warriors, and like it's not treated as anything. It can be a given. All right, it's not an exception to the rule. All right, you know, and also there's samurai sword holders on airplanes. When you walk in, everyone walks around with a samurai sword. All right. They don't make you check them in that universe.
You can get through security.
Yeah, but I like I always did like the idea that like that's not an exception. You know, it's not ever commented on in the movie that they're women who are doing this. It's just they have equal power.
No, they have equal power, and it can be, shall we say, a girl-on-girl fight, but it doesn't come off as anything other than two warriors going at it.
Yeah,
It's not like, it's sexy in a way, but it's not meant to be like girls beating up on girls. It's really two warriors.
Yeah. It's not a cat fight. I mean, there's nothing cat fighty about Lucy Liu and Uma facing off in that snow.
Exactly.
I mean, they are true embedded warriors.
Exactly. But it's very, I mean, it seems to me you must have learned an enormous amount that informed the sequences in Inglourious Basterds, because just staging that amount of battle, I mean, it's an education as a director now.
Well, yeah, it was one of the big things about Kill Bill was the fact that I had shot some action scenes in my movies before, but not really gone for it in a big way. And I've always just considered action directors to be the most cinematic of all filmmakers. You know, that doesn't mean they're the best, but they are the most cinematic. Brilliantly executed action sequence is just about as perfectly cinematic as cinema gets. It's one of the things that movies have to offer, and especially if it's orchestrated by an auteur who has a special vision for it. It can
the characters are characters you care about.
It can be very intoxicating.
Yeah.
And so that was my attempt to throw my hat in the ring. And if ever I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, I don't want to be a piker, even if it's my first time. I want to be one of the best who's ever done it.
Right.
You know. So when I'm doing the House of Blue Leaves fight, I mean, I was going out to make one of the greatest action scenes in the history of cinema, or I failed. You know. And that's what I went out to do. I think it's up there.
It's up there. Yeah, I think it's amazing. And I just saw it again, and if you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch it. It's incredible.
But you know, but you're right though. I did learn a lot. One of the things that it's very scary, or I have a lot of trepidation leading up, as the days get closer and closer to it. But one of the things that I've learned, and one of the things that I like doing, is when it comes to stuff that I've never done before, whether it be there's a big cataclysmic Hieronymus Bosch kind of scene at the end of this movie, at the end of Bastards. All right, well, I've never done a sequence like that before. All right, when I did the car chase in Death Proof, I had never done a car chase before, even though I always liked them. Same thing with these kung fu fights that I did. I like the idea of doing these things that I've never done before and want to knock them completely out of the park. And I know that I'm going to learn how to do it as I do it.
Right.
You know, things will be revealed, but they'll only be revealed once you're in it, once you're doing it. Now that gives you a lot of trepidation going into it, because you really are truly facing the unknown, and it's yours to fuck up. It really is. And unless it's great, I fucked up.
But also, isn't it hard with those scenes? You can't do them. you can do them many times, but it's hard to keep setting them up and doing them again. And
Yeah. It's well, you start learning. I didn't know how to necessarily shoot a fight on Kill Bill. Well, I learned pretty quickly. All right, how to do it. All right, and I learned in China, so I learned the Chinese way, the Hong Kong way, which is vastly superior to the American way. But I also realized it's one of the reasons why their stuff is so awesome, is because they take a lot of time. I mean, actually in Hong Kong, when it comes to their action scenes, they're not even scheduled. All right, they just, when we're done is when we're done.
Wow.
All right, and well, that's how you get good action. If you say, okay, we got to do it in a week or 4 days, or like you're usually wrong anyway, and you go behind schedule. But it's like you're not done until you're done.
So, all right, we're going to take questions.
Hi, I just want to mention how when you were making Grindhouse, there was some issues with Robert Rodriguez about digital and film. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate how you feel about this transition?
Well, there wasn't any issues. He's really into it, and I'm not. And it makes all the sense for Robert, because he's like a one-man band. He does everything himself, and digital just really allows him to do everything himself. And he's a techie, so he was never really in love with film in the first place. And the fact that he can actually do his thing and actually see it on the set. This is what it's going to look like. No BS, no waiting around. This is it. It's actually kind of perfect for him. I just am not like that, all right? I am about as analog as somebody can get, If I could shoot my movies on cassette tapes, I would, No, but I love film. And one of the things that I love about it is, I collect film. I have 16 millimeter prints. I'm not the guy who's going to go digital, all right? But one of the things that I love about film so much is, there's that expression, the magic of movies. Well, that's not a lie. That actually is the case when it comes to film, because it's easy to forget, but you're never looking at anybody moving when you watch a film. You're watching still pictures. They are just still pictures. But when shown at 24 frames a second through a light prism, it creates the illusion of movement. When you watch a movie, you are watching nothing but an eye trickery. You're watching an illusion. And I actually think that is part of what you call the magic of movies.
And really quickly, not to sound too fanboy, but could you elaborate on the wall of shame that was going on during the production of Inglourious Basterds?
What he's talking about. I started this in Jackie Brown. I wish I could take complete credit for it. I think Tony Scott started it, and I thought it was a good idea, and I carried it on. You do a lot. You do movies, and you work really late, and people fall asleep on the set. Well, you try to discourage that, and the way I discouraged it is you go out and you buy a big giant dildo, about this big. And I call it Big Jerry. And if anybody falls asleep on the set, we come up with Big Jerry and put it right next to their face and take a photograph of it. And then we have a little wall of shame, and we collect it on there. So Big Jerry is literally a very important member of our crew. And is beloved. The crew loves Big Jerry. And then as opposed to seeing a crew member sleeping and getting mad, you want them to go to sleep. Oh my God, Lynn's sleeping. Get Big Jerry, get the camera, he's gonna fucking wake up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to ask about the misspelling of the title Inglourious Basterds. Was that to just distinguish from the original movie, or was there another motivation behind it?
I don't explain it simply because it's an artistic stroke. So to explain it is to take the piss out of it. I might as well not done it. All right, so that's why I don't explain it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about your technique for creating characters? Do you base them on people, and do you have a couple of favorites of the ones that you've created?
God, I'm not. It's hard to ask a writer questions like that because you don't really know how you do what you do. Some of them are based on people. They're based on ideas. They're based on me. They're based on things I've heard. And then that's like some of the things that are based on to get them started. But then they become themselves as you write. They just literally take shape and they take form. And the way you write them is to let them tell you. You don't lead them; they lead you. All right, and you discover things. They're always surprising you. In the case again, you guys haven't seen the movie yet, but in the case of Colonel Hans Landa in this movie, part of the thing about his character is he's a linguistic genius and he speaks all these different languages. Well, I didn't know he spoke all those different languages at the beginning of it. He just kept being able to speak all these different languages. When it came up, if there's not, but if a Filipino walked in the movie, he'd be able to speak Tagalog. All right, it didn't happen, but he could do it. All right, he has that power, and it's part of the fun alchemy. All right, of literally just making these characters come alive and having them surprise you. It's hard to pick. It's really hard to pick, about like my favorites, But I will definitely say Colonel Landa, the new one, is one of my when I finish writing the script, this is not only one of the best characters I've ever written, it's one of the best characters I will ever write. So that's why I was very precious about the casting.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess this is sort of piggybacking on that question, but if you had to pick a character that most represents you or is most similar to you, what character would you say that it is, of the characters you've created?
Well, there usually is some sort of...
I think that you're in all of them.
Yeah. There is usually some sort of stand-in for me at some point or another, but it really is kind of subdivided, and then also I'll become a character as I'm writing. I mean, what I mean is it's almost like a method actor. I just identify with one character, even if it's not me, identify with them, and then during the course of the writing, it's the one that I'm kind of seeing through their eyes, through the writing process. Like when I was writing Jackie Brown, I saw the world through Ordell's eyes. I just really identified with that character, and I could see myself being like him if I wasn't an artist. If I had, I could have saw myself being a crook like him. Not a killer, but more like a con man or something like the way he is. And I could see that, and I just identified with his point of view during the writing of it. During Kill Bill, I completely identified with the bride. And I like a year and a half writing that script. So for a year and a half, I was kind of looking through things with a feminine viewpoint, and. It's funny. The character in this movie there's a black Frenchman in the film named Marcel, who's a projectionist. I think he probably is the closest to me in the movie. He's the one that I identified the most with. Get some guys up there.
Thank you.
By the microphone.
One of the things I've always found great about your pictures are the dialogues between characters. And one of the dialogues that I guess never made it into Pulp Fiction was the Elvis versus
I love
Beatles
that
fans.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite scenes of any one of your pictures. How did you determine to not put that in?
I love that too.
There was a big reason.
When I wrote about
there.
him the first time, I put that in the piece, and then it wasn't in the movie. It was so upsetting.
Genius. It's total genius.
Well, there was a big reason, because when I came up with that she comes down with this video recorder and kind of does an impromptu interview. That was, I thought, a very neat idea at the time. And then during the making of the movie and as time went on, that was becoming this cliche in the 90s of characters, 20-something characters interviewing other 20-something characters with video cameras. It became like it was in every independent movie, along with the fucking goatees that everyone was wearing at that time. And, Reality Bites had it, Sleep With Me had it. I mean, it was almost du jour, all right? And I liked the scene, but I didn't think we needed it per se. But I just I didn't like the cliche aspect that I was becoming a troupe of the 90s.
But the writing was really nice.
Yeah. One more question, not to ask you to give up the ghost too much, but what was in the briefcase?
Whatever you think.
My question is about what inspires the various messages and genres that you do. For example, you go from female warriors in Kill Bill to, people who kill Nazis. And how do you find the circumstances that tell the message? And do the circumstances actually matter that much?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, the thing that gets me started, that sends me on the road, is usually something very, very, very basic. Almost as simple as possible. And I do like working in genres. I like genres. I can make a case that every movie is a genre movie. Eric Romer movies are genre movies. And if you make a movie like him, you're kind of making an Eric Romer movie. All right. But my feeling though is I like the fact that literally I start with nothing more than, in this case, a bunch of guys on a mission, World War II film. That's what gets me to sit down and write it. Wouldn't that be cool to do something like that? Now, then I start writing, and then the characters become the characters, and the scenario becomes the scenario, and it goes on its own way. And I'm hoping to explode those genres and go way beyond them, but hopefully still delivering the pleasures that they have to offer. But I actually think the simpler the better, as far as just the idea. I like Western, so just wanting to do a Western is enough at the very beginning. And then it grows and grows and becomes what it becomes. But also, I try not to. I don't ever deal with the subtext of the movie as I'm writing it. I keep it about the text. I keep it about the scenario and the moment-to-moment aspects of it. I know that there's a ton of subtext there. I know there's a lot of there, but I don't want to know that. That's taking care of itself. And I want it to just do its own thing. That's one of the things that's actually very interesting about like this stage of the game where I'm doing a lot of talking about the film is I don't get analytical about it during the writing or during the making of it. Now is the fun time where I actually get to be analytical about it and see what it is I've actually done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, do you really still carry the bad motherfucker wallet from Pulp Fiction?
I had to retire it because it was getting too fucked up, all right? All right, so now my wallet is the pimp orderly buck, all right, from Kill Bill, the big El Paso pimpin' wallet. That's my wallet now.
And show the shoes.
Yeah, wearing Kill Bill shoes. Kill Bill.
Hi, I'm interested in knowing how you select the music that you use in your film scores. I'm thinking primarily of Pulp Fiction. I mean, do you have a process where you try to seek out the perfect song for a scene, or is it something that just zaps you in the head at 3 o'clock in the morning, or how does that work?
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, normally when I come up with an idea and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to sit down and write this now, it usually is a situation where I dive into my record collection or my music collection and just start looking for stuff. And I'm looking for basically the rhythm of the movie or the beat of the movie, the way it's going to play. And then, and then it keeps on going on. It starts before writing, it goes on, continues during writing, during production, and then finally into post-production. But like in that instance, per se, in the course of Pulp Fiction, surf music was the rhythm that I was going for. That would be the beat that the film was playing at. And I found what I thought was like some of the appropriate surf tunes to set that tone. And the reason I went with surf music, because I never really understood what the hell it had to do with surfing. To me, it always just sounded like rock and roll Ennio Morricone music. It always sounded like rock and guitar-driven spaghetti western music.
Right.
When I actually thought Pulp Fiction played like a rock and roll spaghetti western to one degree or another. So that's why I went with that.
I was just wondering, since a lot of your movies are so dialogue-driven, I was wondering if there were specific scenes from movies that you were most proud of, that you really enjoyed writing the most, and that you really couldn't wait to see how they played out.
Yeah, well, hopefully every movie has at least 3 scenes like that.
Right.
That's a pretty good ratio.
But
Already, if you keep that going.
like, what were your favorites?
Yeah. Well, I think until I did the opening scene in this movie, I had one that had yet to be topped, and that was the Sicilian speech between Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken in True Romance. That was my first script, and just in a greatest hits kind of way. If you're going to just break them down to a greatest hits album, that would be the biggest hit.
The one we saw part of is I
What?
think. Bill and the Bride.
Oh no, I agree. I just do think though that reached a certain level that hadn't been topped.
Right.
And everything was just maybe vaguely under it. I mean, something could work even better than that because it has more emotional resonance by the time you get to it in the movie. But it's just a standalone. But when I wrote the opening scene in Bastards, like I finally bettered it. I finally bettered my first work.
So now you have to see it.
Okay.
How's it going?
Hey.
Always wondered, with your double feature with Robert Rodriguez,
Yes.
was Death Proof always
intended to follow Planet Terror, or was it originally intended to be the first film? Because rhythm-wise, it just felt like your movie built up to the action, whereas his movie was straight out action.
Right.
So I kind of felt like your movie would have built up to the action, then his movie would have kind of like continued the action. And then there was like a part of Planet Terror where they reference Jungle Julia's death. So I always wondered if your movie was originally intended to go first and then his second.
No, people have, they've said we were wrong, all right? Not everybody, all right? But some people have said it should have been the other way. No, it was always meant to be that way. That was one of the reasons why, you know, I could just commit so much to like such a big deal car chase, knowing that that was going to be the end of this giant double feature, was my big climactic scene.
Right.
Thanks.
Sure thing.
Sure.
Earlier in your life, what originally motivated you to enter the filmmaking business? What originally inspired you to say, I want to make movies?
You know, it's a good question. I don't really have a good answer for it, though, because truthfully, I don't remember a time at all when movies were just not my favorite thing. It's always been a constant in my life. I mean, you know, with other boys, it could be sports, other boys could be cars, it could be whatever. With me, it was always movies. Now, then, I wanted to be an actor because when you're 5, 6, whatever, and you want to do what they do, those are who you see, or the actors. I realized fairly quickly, all right, though, as I got older, that my heroes were directors. Even when I wanted to be an actor, my heroes were directors. I wanted to work with this director and work with that other director. But what really switched me over was when I actually started going to acting classes, you know, for real. And I realized I didn't really have a whole lot in common with a lot of the actors there. You know, I was really about cinema and the history of cinema and the future of cinema. And they weren't about that. They were about getting jobs, you know. But also, I also made another realization that was very paramount to my process, was I just realized I loved movies too much to simply appear in them. I wanted the movie to be my movie.
That's great.
I'm interested in doing that myself later in life, and so I wanted to, you know,
Good deal, man. Good luck to you.
Thanks.
Final question.
No pressure. The reason why we love you so much is because we know you love movies as much as we love movies. And
It's true.
And it shows, because I used to be a little girl watching Channel 5 on Saturdays, the Kung Fu movies. So when
Black
I saw
Belt Theater, yeah.
Man. So when I saw Kill Bill 1 and 2, it was like my birthday hooking up with Christmas. It was like, it was nuts. What I wanted to know was,
Doing the nasty.
Exactly. Just sweaty in the backseat of a car. My mother's gonna kill me. What I wanted to know is when we come out of these movies and we have this kind of high, this movie lover, cinephile high, what was the last movie that you saw where you experienced that high?
Oh man, that's a great question for the last one. My God. Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. Well, my favorite movie this year, I don't know if I got that high, but my favorite movie this year was Funny People so far. I think it's a real piece of auteur work. But I guess as far as this year is concerned, that kind of thing, I felt that in Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah.
All right, that was really cool, and it was great to see him do a horror film again. And the end is the best part, all right? The end was so fucking awesome, all right, you know? So if I was just gonna keep it to this year, I guess Drag Me to Hell would be the last time I got that movie lover's rush.
Last thing I want to say is that there's been a lot of stuff out that sucked, and thank you for not sucking ever.
Thank you.
Very good English.
Wow, that sounds like the end to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.